The space station called Harmony's Rest was floating in the dark emptiness between two star systems. It was a massive structure, home to over 50,000 beings from dozens of different alien species. They came here to trade, to work, to live together in peace. For 300 years, the station had been a symbol of unity among the stars. But today the station had a problem, a very big problem. Commander stood in his office, his four arms crossed tightly against his chest. He was a species that looked something like a tall frog walking on two legs. His skin was pale blue, and a thin membrane stretched between his neck and shoulders that changed color with his emotions. Right now it was bright red. He was angry. He was scared. He was out of options. "Show me the latest numbers," he said to the holographic display floating before him. The numbers appeared, and his membrane turned an even darker shade of red. The Skrill population in Cargo Bay 7 had grown by 40% in just 1 week. 40%. At this rate, they would spread to the food storage areas within a month. After that, the medical wing. Then everywhere else. Skrill were the worst kind of pest in the galaxy. They were about the size of a human fist, with 6 legs and hard shells that protected them from most poisons. They ate everything: plastic, metal, organic matter, wiring. They had destroyed 17 space stations in the past 5 years alone. Entire stations, abandoned because nobody could stop these creatures from eating them from the inside out. Had tried everything. Poison gas that killed most other pests did nothing to Skrill. Their shells protected them. Traps caught a few, but they bred so fast that it made no difference. Sonic weapons that disrupted their nervous systems only made them angry. Fire was too dangerous on a space station. Freezing them required shutting down life support to entire sections. He was running out of time. Down in the maintenance tunnels beneath Cargo Bay 7, 2 humans were having a very different kind of day. Was the station's chief engineer, a calm man in his early 40s with graying hair and tired eyes. He had seen a lot of problems in his 20 years of working in space. Most of them he could fix. This one was different. His partner was younger and had more energy than anyone had ever met. She was a maintenance specialist, which meant she fixed the things that broke. Lately, that meant fixing the things that Skrill had chewed through. "Another power cable," said, holding up a wire that had been bitten clean in half. "That's the 7th one today." Sighed, he looked down the tunnel where his flashlight caught the reflection of dozens of tiny eyes. The Skrill were watching them, waiting. They knew the humans would leave eventually, and then they would continue eating. "We need to seal this section," said. "If they get into the main power grid, the whole station goes dark." "Sealing won't stop them," replied. "They'll just eat through the seals. They ate through a titanium door last week, remember?" Remembered, he had been trying to forget. They finished their repairs and made their way back to the main corridors. The station was busy as always, filled with aliens of all shapes and sizes going about their daily business. But notice something different today. People were scared. He could see it in the way they walked faster, the way they looked over their shoulders. Word had spread about the infestation. Everyone knew what happened to stations that couldn't control their Skrill problems. An announcement came over the station's communication system. Commander was calling an emergency meeting of the Council of Species. All department heads were required to attend. And looked at each other. "This should be interesting," said. The council chamber was the largest room on the station. It was shaped like a circle, with seats rising up in tiers around a central platform. Representatives from every species on the station were there. Counted at least 30 different types of aliens, each more strange and wonderful than the last. There were the tall and thin like walking sticks, with eyes that covered half their faces. There were the reptilian creatures with scales that shimmered in the light. There were the small and furry with big ears that twitched constantly. And there were many others, species that had worked with for years but still could not pronounce the names of. Commander stood at the center of the platform. His membrane was still red, and his voice shook slightly as he spoke. "Thank you all for coming," he said. "I will not waste time with pleasantries. You all know why we are here. The Skrill infestation has reached critical levels. If we do not find a solution within the next 30 days, I will have no choice but to order an evacuation of the station." The room exploded with noise. Aliens shouted in a dozen different languages. Some waved their arms or tentacles in anger. Others made sounds of distress that translator could not interpret. Raised all four of his hands for silence. Slowly, the room quieted. "I am open to suggestions," he said. "Any suggestions at all?" The representative spoke first. "We could vent the affected areas into space. Everything in Cargo Bay 7, gone in seconds." "That cargo includes 3 months of medical supplies," another voice called out. "People will die without those medicines." The eye stood up, his scales clicking together. "Controlled fire burned them out." "On a space station," replied, "the risk is too great." More suggestions came. Each one was worse than the last. The representative started crying, which made several other aliens uncomfortable. In the back of the room, leaned over to. "You know what would fix this, right?" she whispered. Closed his eyes. "Please don't." "I'm going to." "No." But she was already raising her hand. Every eye in the council chamber turned toward the back of the room. Some of those eyes were large and round. Some were small and many. Some glowed in the dim light. All of them were now looking at. She stood up slowly, feeling the weight of all that attention pressing down on her. Beside her, put his face in his hands and shook his head, but had never been the type to stay quiet when she had an idea, even if that idea sounded crazy. "Commander," she said, her voice clear and steady, "I think I have a solution." The room fell completely silent. Its membrane shifted from red to a curious orange color. "Speak human," he said. "At this point I am willing to hear anything." Walked down the steps toward the central platform. She could feel the aliens watching her every move. To them, humans were still a mystery. Earth had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago. That was nothing compared to species that had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. She reached the platform and turned to face the council. "On Earth," she began, "we have dealt with pests for as long as we can remember. Rats, mice, insects, all kinds of creatures that ate our food and destroyed our homes. For a very long time we tried the same things you have tried. Traps, poisons, burning. Nothing worked completely." The eye representative made a sound of agreement. "This is the nature of pests. They adapt, they survive." "Exactly," said. "So we tried something different. Instead of fighting nature, we used nature against itself. We found a predator. A small, fast, deadly predator that hunted pests for fun, and we brought it into our homes." The room went very quiet again, but this was a different kind of quiet. This was the quiet of confusion. "You brought a predator into your home?" asked slowly. "On purpose?" "Yes, we call them cats, or felines if you want to be scientific about it. They are small mammals about this big." Held her hands about a foot apart. "They have 4 legs, sharp claws, and teeth designed for killing small prey. They are silent hunters, patient, and they are very, very good at what they do." A ripple of unease passed through the council. The representative, who had finally stopped crying, started again. "This is madness," the delegate said. "You are suggesting we release predators onto a space station filled with civilians." "I am suggesting we release pest controllers onto a space station filled with pests," replied calmly. "There is a difference." "How can we trust these creatures?" another voice called out. "What stops them from attacking us?" Who had been trying to stay invisible in the back, suddenly found himself walking forward. He did not want to do this. He did not want to stand in front of all these aliens and talk about cats, but needed backup, and he was her partner. "Cats have lived with humans for over 10,000 years, he said, reaching the platform. "We have bred them, raised them, lived with them in our homes. They sleep in our beds. They sit on our laps. Children play with them. You let your children near predators. Its membrane was now a shade of purple that had never seen before. Every day, said, millions of households on Earth have cats. They are companions, family members. And yes, they are also killers, but they only kill small things, things like squeal. The council members began talking among themselves. The sounds of a dozen alien languages filled the chamber, caught bits and pieces through his translator. Words like insane and typical humans and might actually work floated through the noise. Commander raised his hands for silence once again. Let me understand this correctly, he said, speaking slowly as if the words themselves were difficult. You propose bringing alien predators onto my station, predators that you admit are designed to kill, and your argument for why this is safe is that human children play with them. That is correct, Sid. And these creatures can be controlled. They will obey orders. And looked at each other. This was the tricky part. Controlled is a strong word, admitted. Cats do not follow orders. They are not like dogs. They do what they want when they want. The purple in its membrane deepened. Then how do you propose we manage them? You don't manage cats, explained. You provide them with food, water, and comfortable places to sleep. In return, they hunt. It is their nature. They cannot help it. If there are squeal on this station, the cats will hunt them. Not because we tell them to, but because that is what cats do. And if there are no more squeal, the eye asked, what then will they hunt us? Shook his head. Cats are not stupid. They know the difference between prey and not prey. You are too big, too dangerous looking. To a cat, you are just strange furniture. They might ignore you completely, or they might decide they like you and want to sit on you. Sit on me, the eye looked horrified. It is a sign of affection, said, usually. More discussion erupted. Could see that the council was divided. Some aliens looked curious. Some looked terrified. A few looked like they were seriously considering the idea. Finally spoke again. How long would this take? If we approved this plan, how quickly could you solve our problem? Thought about it. With a team of 6 cats, properly motivated, I estimate 2 to 3 weeks for complete pest elimination. 2 weeks, repeated. We have tried everything for 2 months with no success, and you claim cats can solve this in 2 weeks. Cats are very good at killing, said simply. It is their favorite thing. The representative fainted. Several others looked like they wanted to. Stood in silence for a long moment. His membrane cycled through several colors before settling on a resigned gray. I will consider this proposal, he said finally. I want full documentation on these feline creatures, behavior patterns, dietary needs, potential risks, everything. If I am going to unleash predators on my station, I want to know exactly what I am getting into. Smiled. It was not a comforting smile. I will prepare the files immediately, Commander, and I promise you will not regret this. Was less sure. He had lived with cats. He knew what was coming. The aliens had no idea what they were about to experience. But at least the squeal problem would be solved, probably. The transport ship arrived exactly 2 weeks after the council meeting. It was a small vessel, barely larger than a shuttle, with the words Soul's Pride painted on its side in both Korean and Galactic Standard. It docked at Port 7, the quietest section of the station, far from the main trading areas. This was not an accident. Commander had ordered the area cleared. Only essential personnel were allowed within 200 meters of the docking bay. Armed security officers stood at every entrance, their weapons ready, their faces nervous. They had all read the files on felines. They had seen the videos. They were not sure they were ready for what was coming. Stood at the airlock door, barely able to contain her excitement. Beside her was the station's chief of security. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a face that rarely showed emotion. Today, however, even he looked a little worried. "You are sure about this?" asked quietly. Completely sure, said. The commander is having second thoughts. He watched a video of a cat killing something called a mouse. He did not sleep last night. Mice are much smaller than Skrill. The cats will have even more fun. Stared at her. You say that like it is a good thing. It is a good thing, trust me. The airlock hissed open. A rush of air from the transport ship flowed into the station, carrying with it a smell that could not identify. It was warm and slightly dusty, with a hint of something wild underneath. A woman stepped through the airlock first. She was older than, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that had seen many things. Her uniform identified her as a member of Earth's Interstellar Pest Control Division. Specialist, the woman asked. That is me. Welcome to Harmony's Rest. I am Handler. I have brought your weapons. She smiled, but it was not entirely friendly. I hope your aliens are ready. Behind, two assistants carried large containers with mesh doors. Inside, shapes moved. Eyes glowed. Soft sounds emerged, sounds that the translator in his ear could not interpret. Are those the felines? He asked. These are the felines, confirmed. She set down the first container and opened the door. Nothing happened for a moment. Then a head emerged. It was small and triangular, covered in orange and white fur, with two pointed ears that swiveled in different directions. Large green eyes scanned the docking bay, taking in every detail. A pink nose twitched, testing the air. The creature stepped out fully. It was beautiful, realized, beautiful and somehow terrifying at the same time. It moved with perfect grace, each step silent and precise. Its body was lean and muscular beneath the soft fur. This was not a pet. This was a predator wearing a very convincing disguise. More cats emerged from the containers. There were 6 in total. 3 were orange like the first, with stripes running through their fur. 2 were completely black, their eyes like yellow moons in dark faces. The last one was different, a mixture of orange, black, and white in patches across her body. The orange ones are brothers, explained. Good hunters, very enthusiastic. The black ones are sisters, quieter but more efficient. And this one, she pointed to the patched cat, she is the leader. Sat down in the center of the docking bay and began cleaning her paw. She did not look like a leader. She looked like she did not care about anything at all. She does not seem very aggressive, observed. That is because nothing has threatened her yet, said, and because there is nothing here worth killing. Yet. As if on cue, a sound came from the ventilation shaft above them. A skittering, scratching sound that everyone on the station had learned to fear. The Skrill had found them. Stopped cleaning her paw. Her ears rotated toward the sound. Her entire body went still, perfectly still, like a statue made of fur and muscle. Then her pupils changed. They went from normal circles to huge black pools that almost swallowed her eyes completely. Her body lowered. Her back legs tensed. Everyone stepped back, said quietly. Nobody needed to be told twice. The ventilation cover burst open. A Skrill dropped down, its 6 legs clicking against the metal floor. It was larger than had expected, nearly the size of both his fists put together. Its shell was dark brown, and its many eyes reflected the light of the docking bay. For a moment, nothing moved. Then launched herself into the air. What happened next was almost too fast to see. One moment was on the floor. The next, she was in the ventilation shaft. Sounds came from inside, terrible sounds. Screeching, thumping, the crack of something hard being broken. Then silence. Emerged from the shaft with a dead Skrill in her mouth. She dropped it at its feet, sat down, and began cleaning her paw again as if nothing had happened. The other cats had not moved. They sat in a row, watching their leader with what looked almost like respect. Good girl, said, reaching down to scratch behind's ears. The cat closed her eyes and made a sound, a rumbling vibration that came from deep in her chest. What is that noise? Asked, his hand moving toward his weapon. She is purring, it means she is happy. She just killed something and now she is happy. Yes, this is normal. Looked at the dead Skrill on the floor. Its shell had been cracked open like an egg. He had seen security officers struggle to damage these creatures with weapons designed for combat. This small, furry animal had done it in seconds. Behind them there was a soft thump. They turned to see Commander on the floor, unconscious. "Should we help him?" asked. "Give him a minute," replied. "He will need time to process what he just saw." She looked around the docking bay, at the 6 cats now spreading out to explore their new territory. They sniffed at walls, tested the air, peered into shadows with their glowing eyes. The hunt had begun. Somewhere in the depths of the station, the Skrill had no idea what was coming for them. They had been the top of the food chain on 17 different stations. They had destroyed civilizations, ended colonies, brought empires to their knees. They had never met cats. That was about to change. 3 days had passed since the cats arrived on Harmony's Rest. 3 days that changed everything. The aliens thought they knew about predators, prey, and the strange creatures called humans. The Skrill population in Cargo Bay 7 had dropped by 60%. 60% in 3 days. Commander had to read the report 5 times before he believed it. He had teams of scientists working on this problem for months with no success. 6 small furry animals had done more in 3 days than all his experts combined. But that was not the strangest part. The strangest part was how the cats did it. Was the stations. A young man with messy hair and tired eyes who spent most of his time studying alien life forms. Now he had a new subject to study, and it was driving him slowly insane. "They do not just kill," he reported to the council, his voice shaking slightly. "They play. They find a Skrill and instead of killing it immediately, they bat it around. They let it run, then catch it again. They pretend to lose interest, wait for it to try to escape, then pounce. It is psychological torture." The representative made a sound of distress. "Why? What is the purpose of such cruelty?" "I do not know," admitted. "Perhaps it is training, practicing their skills. Perhaps it is entertainment. All I know is that the Skrill are terrified. We have reports of them fleeing from areas where cats have been seen. They are hiding deeper in the station infrastructure, but the cats follow. They always follow." And follow they did. The cats had spread throughout Cargo Bay 7 like ghosts. They appeared in places no one expected. Behind crates, inside ventilation shafts, on top of shelving units that reached to the ceiling. One moment a corridor would be empty, and the next a cat would be there, watching, waiting. The Orange brothers were the most visible. They worked as a team, chasing Skrill out of hiding places and into traps of their own making. They seemed to communicate without sound, just looks and ear movements that meant nothing to the aliens watching. The Black Sisters were different. They preferred darkness, shadows, the spaces between things. Crew members would walk past storage rooms and hear nothing, then find piles of dead Skrill in the morning. Nobody ever saw the Black Cats hunt. They just saw the results. And then there was. Had claimed Commander as her personal property. Nobody understood why. Perhaps it was because he was the largest authority figure on the station. Perhaps she just liked the way his membrane changed colors. Whatever the reason, she followed him everywhere. At this moment was sitting in his office, trying to complete his daily reports. Was in his lap, a warm weight pressing down on his lower legs. She had been there for 4 hours. He desperately needed to use the bathroom, but every time he tried to move, she made a sound of displeasure and pushed her claws slightly into his uniform. "Help," he said weakly into his communicator. His voice came back, trying not to laugh. "Sir, I told you, when a cat chooses you, you are chosen. There is nothing you can do." "But I am the commander. I have duties. I cannot sit here all day with a predator on my lap." "You are also her favorite chair. Congratulations." Ended the communication and looked down at. She was purring again, that strange rumbling sound that he had initially found terrifying but now found almost comforting. Her eyes were closed and her body was completely relaxed. He sighed and went back to his reports. There were worse problems to have. Across the station, other aliens were having their own experiences with the cats. The Eye, who had been most against the plan, had become unlikely friends with one of the Orange brothers. They had named him, which explained was a Korean word for a type of food. The Eye did not understand why humans named their predators after food, but they accepted it. Had discovered that eye scales were excellent for scratching against. He would rub his face along their legs, marking them with his scent, claiming them as part of his territory. The Eye found this deeply uncomfortable at first. Now they competed to see who would visit first each day. The small and furry themselves had been expected to fear the cats the most. Instead, something unexpected happened. The cats seemed to recognize them as similar creatures. Not prey, not threats, but something almost like family. The Black Sisters in particular would curl up with crew members during rest periods, sharing warmth in a way that transcended species. "I do not understand," the representative told during a patrol. "Yesterday I was terrified of these creatures. Today one of them is sleeping on my head." "Cats are complicated," replied. "Humans have lived with them for 10,000 years, and we still do not fully understand them." By the 5th day, something new started happening. The cats began leaving presents. Was the first to notice. He arrived at his quarters to find 3 dead Skrill arranged in a neat line outside his door. They were not damaged beyond the killing blow, not eaten, not scattered, just presented like offerings. "What does this mean?" his neighbor asked, keeping a safe distance. "It means they like me," said, though he was not entirely sure himself. "Or they are showing dominance, or they want me to know they are good hunters. With cats, it could be any of these things." The presents continued. Crew members found dead Skrill outside their quarters, in their workspaces, sometimes on their actual beds. The chief medical officer opened her door one morning to find 7 Skrill corpses arranged in what almost looked like a pattern. She requested a transfer to another station. Her request was, they needed all the medical staff they could get. As the week continued, the Skrill population dropped lower and lower. The creatures that had once moved freely through the station were now hiding in the deepest, darkest places they could find. But even there, they were not safe. The cats followed the sounds, the smells, the tiny vibrations of Skrill feet on metal. There was no escape. Continued his observations, filling report after report with findings that would change galactic understanding of predator-prey relationships. But in his private notes, he wrote something different. Day 7, one of the cats sat on my chest this morning while I was trying to sleep. It stared at me for 20 minutes without blinking. When I tried to move it, it bit my hand, not hard enough to break skin, just hard enough to let me know it could. Then it started purring and fell asleep on my face. I think this is affection. I am not certain. Humans are strange and their animals are stranger, but somehow, impossibly, I think I am starting to like them. He was not alone. All across the station, aliens were falling in love with the small, deadly, inexplicable creatures that had invaded their lives. The Skrill did not stand a chance. 1 month after the cats arrived, Commander stood before the Council of Species with news that nobody had believed possible. Harmony's Rest was officially Skrill-free. Not reduced, not controlled. Completely, absolutely, permanently free. The chamber erupted in celebration. Aliens who had been preparing to abandon their homes, their businesses, their entire lives, now cheered and embraced each other. They cried again, but this time from joy. Even the stern Eye allowed themselves small sounds of satisfaction. But was not alone at the podium. Sat in his lower arms, curled into a comfortable ball, her eyes half closed in contentment. Over the past month she had refused to leave his side. He had learned to work around her, to conduct meetings with a cat in his lap, to give orders while she groomed herself on his shoulder. It was strange. It was undignified. It was, he had to admit, somehow wonderful. "We have learned a valuable lesson," announced, his voice carrying across the chamber. "Humans do not merely survive alongside predators. They do not just tolerate them. They befriend them. They invite death into their homes, give it cute names, and teach it to use a litter box." Scattered laughter rippled through the crowd. Even smiled, something his species rarely did. "When the humans first proposed this solution, I thought they were insane. Many of us did. We could not imagine living alongside creatures designed to kill. We could not understand why anyone would want to." He paused, looking down at. She opened one eye, looked at him, then closed it again and continued purring. "Now I understand. These animals are not just predators. They are companions. They choose us, for reasons we may never fully comprehend. They protect our stations by doing what comes naturally to them, and in return they ask only for food, warmth, and the occasional chin scratch." He demonstrated the last part, rubbing his finger under his chin. Her purring grew louder, a sound that could now be heard throughout the silent chamber. "Therefore," continued, "effective immediately, the Galactic Trade Authority is formally requesting Earth to establish a feline deployment program. Any station experiencing pest infestations may apply for cat placement. This is not just a recommendation. It is a plea." The human section of the chamber erupted in cheers, jumped to her feet, pumping her fist in the air, smiled wider than he had in years, nodded in satisfaction, his arms crossed over his chest. Even Handler, who had remained on the station to monitor the cats, allowed herself a small smile. "Furthermore," said, "I am personally recommending that every major station in the galaxy consider permanent cat residency. Not as pest control, though that benefit is obvious, but as crew members, as companions, as family." This announcement created even more noise. Some aliens looked thrilled, others looked confused, a few looked like they might faint, but nobody argued, nobody could argue with results. After the ceremony, a celebration was held in the main plaza. Food and drink from dozens of worlds filled long tables. Music played, strange combinations of sounds that somehow worked together. Aliens mingled freely, their fear of the past month replaced with relief and joy. The cats, of course, were the guests of honor. Sat on a special platform, surrounded by eye admirers who took turns scratching his favorite spots. He accepted their attention like a king receiving tribute, which, in his mind, he probably was. The Black Sisters had found a warm spot near the heating vents, where a group had gathered to nap with them. The pile of fur, both alien and feline, rose and fell with peaceful breathing. The Orange Brothers were playing, chasing something across the plaza floor. At first, some aliens were alarmed, thinking it was a squeal. Then they realized it was a small toy, a ball with a bell inside that had brought from Earth. The cats attacked it with the same ferocity they had used on the squeal, but this time everyone laughed. In a quiet corner, sat with his, still taking notes. One of the Black Sisters had found him, climbing into his lap without invitation and refusing to leave. He had stopped trying to move her hours ago. "You know," said, sitting down beside him, "you can just enjoy the party. You do not have to work all the time." "This is not work," replied, not looking up from his screen. "This is the most fascinating study of my career. Do you know what I have learned about cat-alien bonding behaviors in the past month? It will revolutionize our understanding of cross-species relationships." "You like them," said simply. Paused. He looked down at the cat in his lap, at her sleek black fur and golden eyes. She looked back at him and blinked slowly. "Yes," he admitted. "I do not understand them. I may never understand them, but yes, I like them very much." Across the plaza was being swarmed by reporters from various galactic news services. They wanted to know everything about cats, about Earth, about the humans who lived with predators as if it were normal. "How did this begin? one reporter asked, a tall with recording devices hovering around his head. How did your species come to domesticate such deadly creatures? Thought about it? Honestly, we are not sure who domesticated who. The cats might have chosen us. They came to our farms because we had mice, which were pests. They stayed because we gave them food and shelter. Over time, we grew to love each other. Love, the reporter seemed confused by the word. You love predators. We love cats, corrected. They are family. When you live with a cat, you learn that they are more than killers. They are playful. They are curious. They are independent, but they also need us, and we need them. She looked around the plaza, at the cats scattered throughout the celebration, at the aliens who had gone from terror to affection in just 1 month. Maybe that is what humans do, she said. We find the dangerous things in the universe and make friends with them. Dogs, cats, horses, even fire. We do not run from nature. We embrace it. The reporter had no response to that. As the celebration continued, noticed something in the corner of his eye. One of the orange brothers had stopped playing with the toy. His body had gone still, his ears pointed toward a cleaning drone moving erratically across the floor. "Oh," said. The cat's pupils dilated, his haunches wiggled. "Should we stop him?" asked, looking up from his. "Absolutely not," replied, appearing beside them with a drink in her hand. "Never interrupt a cat mid-hunt." The cat launched himself at the drone. There was a crash, a series of sparks, and then the cat emerged triumphant with a piece of the drone in his mouth. He carried it proudly across the plaza and dropped it at Commander's feet. Looked down at the destroyed equipment, then at the cat, then at the humans. "I will add drone replacement to the budget," he said with a sigh. The humans laughed. The aliens laughed too, once they realized it was appropriate. The cat sat down and began cleaning his paw, utterly unconcerned with the chaos he had caused. This was life now on Harmony's Rest. This was the new order. In the years that followed, cats became the most requested export from Earth. Every station wanted one. Every species learned the sacred rituals, the chin scratches, the laser pointers, the midnight zoomies that woke everyone from sleep. They learned that cats would knock things off tables for no reason. They learned that closed doors were personal insults. They learned that the cardboard boxes their shipments came in were more valuable than the shipments themselves. Humanity had reached the stars through technology and determination, but they had conquered the galaxy in a different way entirely. Not with weapons, not with diplomacy, not with trade or treaties. With cats. Small, fluffy, utterly uncontrollable murder machines who had somehow convinced the entire universe that they were harmless. And the universe, like humanity before it, never stood a chance.